Hey guys, so I just want to make a quick video about Soulwinning Tips. It's kind of relevant for what happened today, but basically I want to talk a little bit about dealing with heretics. The Bible says in Titus 3 verse 10, a man that is an heretic after the first and second admonition reject. The following verse says, knowing that he that is such is, let me try to get that correctly, knowing that he that is such is subverted and sinneth, being condemned of himself, right? So the idea is that verse 11 is really getting at the idea of, look, like, they're condemned of themselves. You know, the fact that they're a heretic, the fact that they reject what the Bible says, that's not your fault. At the end of the day, they're condemned because of themselves. At the end of the day, it's their fault. It's on them if they refuse to accept what the Bible clearly says. So in a soul winning context, if you give someone like two verses or two explanations or however you want to quantify that, and they're just being hard-headed, they're being stubborn, they don't want to accept what the Bible says, if they're trying to like argue with you, if they're trying to throw verses at you and try to make their own talking points and try to, in a sense, like talk over you, and they're not really listening to what you're saying, but they're just interested in just getting out what they believe, then that person's a heretic. And obviously you don't want to waste your time with this person. With soul winning, we only have so much time, we only have so much energy in the day, and that it's way too precious to be spending on heretical people that are just not interested in what the Bible says. And so there's a lot of different flavors about what this looks like, but the general idea is that, you know, they're stubborn, they don't want to accept what the Bible says, they're not really listening or engaging with what you're saying, they just think they know everything, and they kind of have like an arrogant aspect to themselves. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of like a humble person, if that makes sense. You know, someone who's humble, you know, they are willing to receive information, they're willing to be corrected, they're willing to essentially see a different perspective, and they're always open to the possibility that they might be wrong about what they currently believe. Whereas a heretic is basically the exact opposite of that, and it doesn't matter what you show them, they're not going to change their mind, they're going to continue believing what they believe, they're already set in their ways, and that's basically someone that you don't want to spend a lot of time with. Now, I want to be very clear about something, that obviously you don't want to conflate the heretic with someone that's just a little bit, you know, hung up, or maybe they're just not understanding something, right? If someone is just simply hung up on something and they just need more time to like think it over or just try to figure it out in their head, I think a good way to deal with them is that, you know, instead of just rejecting them and just moving on to the next person like you should do with the heretic, instead what you should do is that you should try to share with that hesitant person a few more verses from the Bible, right? Try to use more explanations, try to help them understand it, ask more questions to kind of reinforce certain things to them. At the end of the day, it's going to be different for every person, everyone's different, but the idea is that the general idea is like, look, you know, if they're hesitant, if they're still a little bit fuzzy, they haven't understood it yet, obviously that is different from a heretic, and in those situations just share a few more verses and try to bring them over the finish line. And you know, eventually, if they're just still hesitant, or they just need more time to think it over, or they're just not sure about it, I would just say, you know, just hand them the card, be nice, obviously, and just kind of move on. And if you're comfortable with it, you might even be willing to share your number with them as well, and be like, hey, look, if you know, I understand that you're hesitant, I understand you might be a little bit unsure about this. Let me just share with you my phone number, and you can reach out to me, or I can reach out to you, and we can kind of continue the conversation and try to get you over to the finish line, so to speak. But yeah, that's basically the general idea. I mean, it's a very simple point. Sometimes it's hard to determine if someone's a heretic, or if they're just kind of a little bit hesitant, or maybe they just need more time to think it over, they're hung up, or what have you. But definitely, once you determine if someone's a heretic, once you can kind of notice it or spot it right off the bat, especially in a group conversation where, let's say, you know, one person in the group is a heretic but the other person is not, you should definitely focus on the person that's not a heretic, and focus on them, spend some time on them. Don't really focus too much on the heretic like in a group presentation, because at the end of the day, it's just going in one ear out the other. No point in interacting with them that much. And at the end of the day, there comes a point where, like, if you're just talking to a heretic, you know, you need to abruptly end the conversation and just say, all right, thank you for your time, I appreciate it, have a great day. And as you're walking away, you might be tempted. You might be like, oh man, you know, as I'm walking away, this person is telling me like, yeah, take that. Yeah, you know that going to heaven is by faith and works. You know that, and you can't prove that what I'm saying is wrong, or whatever they say, right? Don't take the bait. Don't try to continue arguing with them anymore. You know, there's just no point arguing with heretics once you determine that someone is one. Hopefully that helps. God bless. Take care, guys.